Hey,
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me today. How are things going with your book tour so far?
Oh, it's been great. And today's release day. So
Yes.
I woke up to, many like happy, book birthday messages. And yeah, I did an interview this morning and that was a lot of fun. So this is all new for me. So
Hey, listen, you're a pro. You've been writing these books for years. Well, let's
I
get
have.
started. Let's get
Okay.
started. I
Okay.
love this. And first of all, who doesn't love a good backstory? I mean, seriously, right?
Right.
And I wanted to know before we start talking about Cold Hearted, because I have a lot of questions. How did this all get started for you? You've done this is your eighth book now about the Disney villains.
Oh, yes, it is the eighth book. You want to know how it all started?
Yes, please.
Well, I was
Yeah.
doing I was doing comic books actually for a while, and I was doing like retellings of fairy tales, but kind of more like along the lines of like Grimm's fairy tales. And they were, as you could imagine, they're a bit violent and bloody and pretty scary, like with a lot of dark themes. But one of the editors at Disney saw the books and approached me and asked me if there were any, Disney characters I'd like to write about.
Wow.
And I said, yes, please. I'd love to write about the villains. So it all started with the Wicked Queen from
Yeah.
Snow White. Yeah.
It's amazing to me because I mean, even as a kid, like who doesn't go to these movies and just dream about like how does a villain become a villain? How do
That's
they get so mean
right.
inside? Right?
Right.
And so how do you concoct these backstories? Where does it come from?
Well, my background is theater. I went to school to teach theater. So I kind of took it on as like a role that I would play, just like really getting to know the character. And that's the first question I ask is I ask myself why, why was the Wicked Queen like so unhappy and so jealous of Snow White that she would actually try to have her murdered?
Right.
Right. Yeah. And to me, it always felt like there was something more than vanity, happening. And I made the connection with the man in the mirror, and I decided to make the man in the mirror her dead father who was abusive. And so all of the stories have like messages like that, I mean, like with Maleficent, for example, why was she so angry that she wasn't invited to the christening, to
Right.
Aurora's christening? And so, I mean, I don't want to spoil like things for future readers, but
For sure.
there's definitely a better reason than she was, mad that that she was slighted, by the
Yeah.
fairy.
Now, do you think villains are misunderstood or do they kind of deserve what they get?
I think that we're all people, right? And we all have like our journeys and we have choices that we make. And I do think that villains, and some of these villains are misunderstood, but they make the choices that they make, and some of them deserve what they get, and some of them I don't think they do. I mean, I don't feel that like all of my stories are redemption stories.
Right.
Yeah, some of the villains are just bad people, but some of them had really horrible things happen to them. But a lot of us have had horrible things happen to us, but we don't make the choices that
Right.
these villains made.
Yeah.
So I try to make them human and give them give people a reason, for why they took the path
Yeah.
that they took. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so fascinating to me. Okay, so this latest book, Cold Hearted, you dive into Lady Tremaine. Now, we don't think a lot about her unless you're watching, the movie or the play or whatever of Cinderella, and you think about this wicked stepmother,
Right.
her obnoxious two daughters. I mean,
Yeah.
seriously, could you
Yeah.
get any worse than these three women?
They're the
And
worst.
I'm reading the book and I'm going, wow, this is really fascinating because yes, it gives me a little bit of insight as to what you think, why she became who she became.
Right.
But I personally think that she's probably one of the most evil villains in Disney history
Right.
because she doesn't have magic powers. It's all coming from within.
Right.
She's a real bitch.
Yes, I would agree. I would agree. And that's sort of the interesting thing, that I did with the book is I brought this like non-magical woman to a magical place. And she, and people were offering, the magical people were helping to offering to help her, yet she didn't want any help. She was too like stoic. She wanted to take care of it herself, and she didn't trust magic.
Right.
But then when things got really desperate for her, she was pleading with, the fairy godmother
Sure.
and the fairies for help, because, she thought that this was going to be her happily ever after. She meets a handsome man, he sweeps her off to a magical kingdom. She's going to find, royalty for her daughters to marry, and it's a wretched experience.
Right.
I do feel quite bad for her, how it all went down, but the choices that she made and the things that she did were pretty atrocious. So
Yeah.
hopefully people won't think that her ending was too severe in the book.
But here's the thing, you take a character like Cinderella, for example. I mean, and this is kind
Mhm.
of a Disney history too, but the people that, these evil villains pick on, they still stay sweet and innocent and have compassion. I mean, here you wrote this book in third person narrative, of the fairies are telling the story. Somebody or these fairies who Cinderella went to make sure that the daughters are still okay. And you know what I mean? So
Right,
it's just, to me, it blows me away, like to show that there are still good people out there, no matter how
right.
bad they're treated.
Right, right. And to sort of see the journey that Anastasia and Drusilla went on, throughout this entire process, and how they ended up, without giving away spoilers, I
Yes.
think it's also very interesting. I hope for the
No,
readers.
no,
Mhm.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, it's so interesting to that you get this opportunity to create these worlds. I mean, it must be so exciting for you, or is it scary when you sit down to write a new story every time?
No, it's really exciting, actually, because I mean, I've been thinking about these characters since I was a kid.
Yeah,
I was wondering about, why Maleficent didn't get invited to the christening, or, what caused Grimhild, the Wicked Queen, to do the things that she did. And so it's kind of a dream come true that I get to tell these stories, and that I get the freedom that I have from Disney to tell
yeah,
them in the way that I want, So, but to backtrack a little bit, right, I do all my research. I plot it all out in my head. I have all the books plotted from like the beginning to end.
yeah.
But when I sit down, right before I sit down to write the book, I do get a little bit scared, just like, am I going to be able to do it again this time? But I always push through it and I do it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's phenomenal. Have you been approached to make films of these books?
Um, that's we haven't been approached to make films that I know of.
That
Yeah.
shocks me because these are great stories. These are great stories. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, like especially this one. I mean, they were all really good, but this one in particular, especially for the fact that I mean, there's going to be a big Broadway show of Cinderella,
Right.
and Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber has now announced that it's going to open in the West End, and I really think that you need to get a front row seat.
Right, I think so too. Let's see what Disney thinks.
Yeah, let's get it
Yeah.
out there, Andrew Lloyd Webber. Give it
Right.
a ticket. Honestly, but it's to me, it's amazing. So, have you already started to think about the next villain? Because there's
Yeah,
always new Disney movies, right? There's always new Frozen,
right.
tons of
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah,
I plan them really like far in advance, because the stories are all connected, and there's an ongoing storyline with oh, there's my dog. I'm so
that's
sorry.
okay.
Yeah,
He walks in.
my partner will take him into the kitchen now. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
We had that backup plan. We were hoping he would be a good boy, but
Fine, don't worry about it. It's okay.
yeah. So yeah, I plan them all ahead of time. So I know who I'm going to be writing about, because all the books are connected, and they're connected by a group of three women, the Odd Sisters. They're identical witches, and they're all meddling in the lives of
Yes.
these various villains. And then there's Nanny and Circe, and Fairy Godmother actually appears in a lot of the books. And this book, if there's a redemption story for anybody, if
Mhm.
if it's possible for anybody to be redeemed in this story, it would be the Fairy Godmother, because she's not been a very good character throughout the series.
Yeah.
The readers keep saying, you should do the next film book about the Fairy Godmother. I mean, they think of
Sure.
her as a villain.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That would be really
um,
cool.
yeah.
I like that idea. Well, listen, congratulations on everything and best of luck on this book. I know people are going to eat it up for sure. And
Yeah.
it's just been a real pleasure to talk to you today.
Thank
What a fun
you.
time. Thank you so much
Thank,
for your time.
thank you so much. You have a great day.
You too, Serena. Take care. Best of luck.
Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.
Bye.